Round 1 has just been completed of the Repco Supercars Championship, and it was certainly round. It was certainly something. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've got a few talking points. Alright, so this is my instant gratification series. I'm going to be doing it after every race. I'm going to be doing sort of my opinions, my thoughts on the race, as well as things that I think are worth mentioning about it, how people did, sort of the fallback of some events, as well as perhaps championship implications. For example, if you're watching it in the future, Waters hitting the wall, and what that means for the championship when he was currently winning it. Right off the bat, there's one thing that I want to say. In my previous video, I made a mistake. Team 18 commented, however, I thought it was important to mention it again, just to make sure that people are aware of it. In my video, I said that I had had a crash at Winton. That was not true. It was actually a steering wheel issue, and I completely butchered that. That's completely my fault. But now that that's clear, let's get into race 1, and boy, race 1, Van Gisbergen dominates in historic first Gen 3 race. I couldn't think of anything more than just dominant. That's how it was for even just Red Bull as a whole. That was quite the race for them. Red Bull have shown in the past that they're fast, they're willing to adapt to new cars and new rules. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't surprised. I was planning on doing a predictions video, but most of my predictions were Van Gisbergen will win the championship again, which isn't a very interesting predictions video, is it? So I wasn't surprised defending champion Van Gisbergen sees the lead and just destroyed it from there. For the second time, an entire Newcastle race ran green for its entirety. Feeney was 14 seconds off. Cam Waters was third in the first Mustang. One of the big issues, one of the big talking points coming into the race was obviously parity. I did a video on it, and it's been the talk everywhere after they had the issues in the testing and Ford, and parity pretty well down, I think. The top 10 shootouts, like the first one, if you watch the first one, that was some prime time TV. Like the first 5 cars were split by like 0.05 of a second or something like that, until Brody did his lap and got pole. Like, that's insane. So I think parity, and this race as well, like as much as Triple Eight dominated, that's a Triple Eight thing. The race was pretty fairly well done. I think the biggest reason why it didn't feel like race 1 was the most parity driven race was solely due to the fact that DJR just weren't performing. They weren't up to their standards. That was, and then obviously Nick Percat, he's struggling already. He DNF'd, so it's sort of, there were 3 cars that I feel like were well out of position for Ford. So I feel like the parity was about as good as you'd get, despite the fact that we had an obvious Triple Eight Camaro 1-2 domination. Or did we? The big news Saturday night, a protest has been received against Triple Eight for, I think it was their dry ice boxes. They were shown in during the pit stops to have it on the driver's side door. You're supposed to have them on the non-driver's side door. It's supposed to be a fix to that sort of side of the car. It appears Red Bull were running 2. They had the normal one, and then they had the one on the driver's side that was for the feet and the helmet. In light of this, Triple Eight duo disqualified, Waters inherits win. So the first win of the season goes to a Mustang. I'm sure that's not how Cam wants to win races, but he's the first race winner of Gen 3. Tickford won, Walkinshaw and Andretti, Mostert finished third, I think. No, second. And then Brody Kostecki third for yet another podium in his career at Erebus. So, yeah, they're appealing it currently. They're appealing it. I don't think it will get overturned. They believe that they were in the right because they had, I think it was verbal confirmation. If they had something that was tangible, something that could be used as evidence, something written, something typed out, something documented, they'd be in a much better position, but apparently it was verbal. So here we are. I don't think they're getting it back. Obviously, team's not happy. Triple Eight love their wins. Every driver loves their wins. Van Gisbergen loves his wins. But rules are rules. They're not racing rules where you got that little bit of grey area where you can sort of oh, you know, but I was trying to do this, where you can argue sort of what was meant, how it wasn't supposed to happen like that, you know. It's not like a racing incident where there's fault, where you can predominantly blame one driver and you can give them a 5-second penalty or whatever. It's regulation, it's hard set. You can't play hard and fast with these rules. They're set in stone, they're black and white, they're every cliche under the sun. You just can't break them. And it appears they have. Race 2. This was this was controversial. Van Gisbergen wins again. He hasn't had his win taken off of him yet, and I don't think he will, but there was a lot of controversy. And by controversy, of course, I mean people complaining on Facebook and Twitter. However, race 2 begun with a red flag, and I just wanted to mention that we have been seeing quite a few more of those across the last few years. I think that's a thing across all motorsports. I've just seen quite the rise of red flags. I think it was, I was going to say Jake Kostecki. Jake Kostecki was not racing today. It was Declan Fraser who got spun into the wall on lap 1. Obviously not how you want to start, especially when Tickford already had another car in the garage, James Courtney. He crashed in qualifying, so it's not the start that they want, but it's the start they've been given. And I think because he didn't cross the pit box where James Courtney would have started from, Fraser finished behind Courtney, who wasn't even on the track, which is slightly funny to me, I guess. Slightly. It's not funny to Tim Edwards. It's not funny to Tim Edwards, and it's even less funny to Tim Edwards because Waters was in a position to win today. Waters probably should have. Van Gisbergen only just caught Mostert with a few laps to go. Waters should have been clear of Mostert, and he wasn't because he hit the wall in a, I wouldn't say a heat of the moment mistake. He tried to get a much better exit onto the back straight, and then in doing so he just went too thin, clipped the inside wall and narrowly missed the outside wall of, I can't remember turn numbers, it might be 11, just outside of the staircase section. And it was, yeah, that was it. Right, left hand down, the steering was fucked, especially for Waters, who at the time, because of the disqualification, was leading the championship, and coming out of round 1 with a championship lead would have been the sort of, you know, the confidence that Waters needs. That handed the lead back to Mostert, who held on for quite some time against Van Gisbergen until they just made a little bit of contact. If you didn't watch the race, I'll act it out for you. This is Chaz Mostert and this is Van Gisbergen. Van Gisbergen had much better tyres, much better pace. He was catching Mostert by like 1 second per lap, so it was getting quite obvious that he was going to make it pass. And they'd just come out of the staircase section just before the straight, and here's Van Gisbergen. He's got much better grip. Here's Mostert, and they're both sort of gone towards the outside wall before turning onto the back straight, and Mostert sort of just clipped Van Gisbergen there and has gone on a little bit from the corner, and Shane's just gone under him, taking the apex, and it sort of looked like Shane was going to slow. It really looked like Shane was going to slow for a second there. But then he went on. Mostert tried to catch, and at the end of the straight he gave him a little bit of a love tap as well, but he just couldn't get back and finished the race in P2. Obviously there's a little bit of argy-bargy about it, you know, these sorts of things don't go too kindly. It's not like it's a incident that people like seeing, especially from Van Gisbergen. A lot of people in the online communities are already very unhappy. He's got a very sort of move or be moved way of overtaking, in the sense that he does little bump and runs, the sort of stuff that's borderline but just little enough to get away with, that annoys people, so this automatically annoys them as well. While I think it's more Mostert's fault for moving over Van Gisbergen, and I don't think it's going to get a penalty because I don't think it's worth a penalty, it's the sort of thing where if Van Gisbergen got penalised for it, I wouldn't arc up and say, oh no, that's not right. It's sort of on the line in my eyes. However, he's won the race. I'm sure he would have had the pace to get past anyway. I thought he would have redressed. I thought he should have redressed. It's neither here nor there. The race is over now. Another thing worth mentioning, that while they didn't have a particularly great race one as well, in fact they had a terrible race one, Premier Hire has had an amazing weekend. Both races, they ended up in the top 10 shootout. Both races, I feel like they showed promising pace. Like Golding held Van Gisbergen. He's something else. Golding, and that Premier like Camaro is seriously on it this year. Once again, I didn't make a predictions video, but I was going to predict that Premier were going to get their first race win. And I stand strongly by that conviction now. He's very good. And I mean, even Slade, I don't think Slade is that bad. I think Slade has still got it. But that's just my 20 cents. More controversy. And it seems like Supercars can't avoid it. Van Gisbergen shut down the media. He shut down media questions. He answered pretty simply. Thanks to my team, our cars were awesome. All our talking was done on track, thank you. And even in like the press conferences, that was the answer he gave. And like, Chad Nalon was trying to get answers out of him, was saying like, come on, this is a press conference. We're gonna ask questions to you. And that's how he responded. He's done all his talking on the track, and Nalon's obviously, it's his job, so obviously he's a little bit upset and said like, come on mate, seriously, like, is that all? And then it sort of sparked a lot of hate and discussion. The hate I'm ignoring, because the hate is something that always happens in supercars. It's not just SVG. It also happened to McLaughlin. It's why he left the sport, because he hated the hate. It's why in the past drivers like Ambrose have left the sport. There is this certain toxicity when it comes to supercars and supercars fans, especially regarding certain drivers. There's a lot of drivers that do have like a sort of a star-like pull to them, you know, with the fans. But there are a lot of drivers who have a star-like fucking hatred pull to them as well. It's, I think a black hole is actually a better explanation. It's just kind of, and you see it every race. Whenever Shane Van Gisbergen does something, half the crowd hates him just because he's done it, you know, without even looking at why. Apparently the reason is that he's had a lot of pressure to not talk about Gen 3 after being expressly critical. This article here is by AVL, and he's one of Supercars' best journalists, in fact award-winning journalists, and it is for a reason. He's reasoned here that like it's because of his criticism to the Gen 3 platform. He's added comments that have sort of backed up the case. But there was a moment on commentary after the race where Scaife, Tander and Yates, so they sort of laid into him, and it's the same sort of thing that led to McLaughlin leaving. As I said, it's the same sort of thing. And do we really want to see yet another one of our best drivers leave this sport because they can't be themselves, because they can't speak out, because they can't, you know, everybody in the sort of supercars industry seems to be against them. It's gonna happen again. He's gonna go to NASCAR. He's gonna talk badly about the sport and his experiences because he's experienced so much toxicity. And then this will happen again. It'll get to a point where the next driver in supercars just get so good that they're hated by the fans, and they get this toxic reaction whenever they say something that isn't in line with what Supercars wants. But hey, that's round one. And look, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were times where I wish we hadn't gone to Newcastle first. It's not the best track. I think Supercars are kidding themselves by trying to sort of push it as this, like, it's Baku. Starting there isn't the best look, in my opinion, for Supercars. It was a fun weekend nonetheless. Top 10 shootouts. Perfection. 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 That was good. That was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Another thing, I can't wait for the Australian Grand Prix. Another thing I wanted to say is that this is the first time a Ford has led the championship since McLaughlin won it in 2020. Take that how you will. Anyway, that's my video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit like, make sure to hit subscribe, make sure to comment your thoughts. You know the deal. I hate doing outros. It's my least favorite part, but I'll catch you guys next time.